All right. Thank you very much, Skip. This is a subject matter that's very near and dear to my heart, as Skip mentioned, on multiple levels. And to help me feel more comfortable standing up here in front of you all on this very challenging topic, I'm going to ask you guys to participate throughout this presentation. Not yet. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do to participate is take your right pointer finger straight up over your head. Okay. Now, this might be challenging for some of us, okay? What I'd like you to try to do is draw a nice big circle over your head in a clockwise motion. Once you're convinced you have clockwise, don't worry about anybody else. Begin to bring that down. Keep the sphere or keep that circle going and bring it down to a point where you can actually observe it from above. What do you notice about the direction you're now going? Anyone? It changed. It flipped. It went from clockwise to counterclockwise. Welcome to New Zealand. That little piece of aha, that little just, you had no idea where this was going. Thank you for playing along. To get to that simple aha, all you needed to do was follow a little bit of my direction and a willingness to participate. Yet, in some cases, I've actually literally had people go, mind blown, right? This issue of substance use, especially among youth, is all about having their minds blown. And what I mean by that is they're seeking something. They, us, let's face it, humanity. We've been seeking this thing through substances for a very long time. And I'm not here to necessarily define any of that. I'm here to help you all engage in a new perspective and a new discussion that you can bring back to your kids, to your youth, to your church, to your community, parents, leaders, co-facilitators. Everyone can be involved in this conversation. And in fact, the more people involved, the better off we all are. So I'm going to play a quick video for you all. And I ask that you just let it wash over you, so to speak. I'm pointing at the screen. My machine's over here. So I reached out to these artists when I saw this on Facebook and immediately applauded an amazing depiction of addiction and asked them permission to use this, and they just said, please make sure you roll the credits. And I also challenged them to please do another one that shows recovery. And I offered my technical assistance on that one. So, initial feelings that came up for anybody watching that short film. Anyone willing to throw out something they felt?
Despair.
Despair. Very beginning, that first nugget.
Change.
A change. Curiosity. Excellent. Happy. Looked like you had a good time there, right? Or she. The kiwi. Curiosity of what is that? So what is that? Okay. And then as it progressed, other emotional impacts. Anyone? Despair. Frustration. Sadness. Yeah.
Breakdown of self, breakdown of reality, a breakdown of so much.
A lot there, right? A lot. Amazing how they took such a simple line drawing and captured the change in the physiology, right? The change in the initial pace at which that kiwi was pursuing the next nugget. Truly, I believe, one of the most remarkable depictions, and I've been doing this work for over 20 years.
I mean, the world that animal's in as well. It's darker and closes in.
Excellent. Yes.
Bumpy landing.
Heck of a landing. You got it. You got it.
Chasing after that high, that first experience, they keep going with it.
Yeah. The chasing after the first high.
It was interesting how it kept getting bigger. So there was like this weight that kind of carried as he kept going along, and the weight got larger and larger to the point where he barely carried himself to that last nugget.
Excellent. Everybody hear that? The weight of it, the change in that physiology, again, really well demonstrated that carrying so much.
And how everything in life got dark, and the only thing that was bright was that alcohol or whatever in there.
Yeah. So, right, the individual, the actual kiwi, the environment, all of that change, that color just draining out, but yet that nugget still being bright, very appealing.
This might just be projection, but I felt powerless because I was like, I know how the story ends, and there's nothing I can do, which is how I've experienced. I've never been addicted to experiencing those times where it's very difficult to watch and feel that the little bird's just going to get fatter and it's going to get darker, and there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, powerlessness is a huge aspect of addiction in general for everyone involved, right?
And then also along those lines, the kiwi that there were changes going on too, and people helpless and preventing those some changes from occurring within his body.
Absolutely. That excellent awareness on that. Again, 6 minutes, line drawing, very basic animation, and they nailed so many components. Addiction is a disease. And there are still people out there that want to argue this, that it's not. And the reason it qualifies as a disease is because there are physiological changes that happen in the brain and the body as a result of the substance use. It's measurable, it is notable. The challenge is we don't have the silver bullet yet to figure out whether or not your predisposition is different than my predisposition. So much like the kiwi, there's a curiosity that needs to be resolved for most people who engage in substance use. So thank you for those very honest and very personal reactions. What I want to move on to is the idea of this presentation is I'd love to ask a few questions, or these topics of awareness, right? Awareness, prevention, and how about that? What was my third thing? Empowerment, right? Empowerment. First, we have to be aware. What are the challenges? What is there an issue? One of the ways I'd love to introduce this topic to kids, youth, many ages, but mostly high school types of questions. I'll ask you guys to play along again. Raise your hand if you know someone your own age who uses any type of mood or mind-altering substance that is not prescribed to them by a physician. Raise your hand nice and high. Anyone you know personally? All right. Everyone in the room, I believe, for the most part, knows someone personally who uses some type of substance to alter their mood. That first experience, right, that the kiwi had. Raise your hand if you know someone your own age who uses a prescription substance off-label for the same thing, changing their mood. Off-label, meaning they're using it other than prescribed. Okay? Raise your hand if you know someone who is misusing or using at a rate of concern for you or people around them, any substance, for the sake of altering mood. Raise your hand if you know someone unequivocally is in trouble due to their substance use. And finally, this is always the tough one. Raise your hand if you know someone personally who has passed away as a direct result of their substance use. It's a lot of hands. And in this type of room, where you all come from many different geographical locations, let alone communities, even if we're all from New Haven, say, everyone in this room represents a little bit different community. And that's where you know this individual. Those are a lot of hands. Can we see those hands again? People you know personally who have died as a direct result of substance use. So when I first started doing this work, especially among teenagers, that last question elicited in a group this size maybe half a dozen hands. And I'd always say, let's give the benefit of the doubt that you all know the same person, because in that particular social group, they're pretty tight, right? Their social circles are pretty much confined. So let's just say 6 people, 1 person they're all thinking of, benefit of the doubt. In this scenario, we're pretty confident it's much more than just 1, right? I've seen an astronomical growth in the number of hands that have gone up now at that last question among teenagers. So we are at an epidemic level of substance misuse, abuse, lots of different terminology out there. The fact of the matter is the substances that are available to our youth today are far more potent than ever before. And largely, I hate to say this, it's directly through the pharmaceuticals that they can get their hands on. So anybody know what the original gateway drug is? Anyone? Alcohol, marijuana? Anybody else have any other ideas of what the original gateway drug is? Tobacco? Any others? Coffee? Cocaine? caffeine. No sugar, huh? No one brought up sugar. Okay. Interesting. Everybody eating cookies right now? All right. I've been kind of using a little bit of a coined phrase lately that I believe there's only one true gateway drug. And I used to say the one only true gateway drug is ignorance. And then I realized that's kind of a negative way of putting it, and not to call anyone ignorant by any means, but there's an ignorance in not knowing what's going to happen next. And then I, very recently, actually after watching that video the very first time, I have a new word: innocence. There is an innocence in each and every one of us that draws us to new experience. And that innocence is what sets the trap for having an outcome similar to that key. Not for everyone, we know that, but certainly more and more young people. In the over 22 years I've been involved in the field of addictions, I have witnessed a dramatic rise in this epidemic, especially among young people. And what used to be a more noticeable trajectory of early onset, different types of factors that came into play for these young people, the end result is happening much faster, and a lot of those early warning symptoms are not there. And again, it's all based on potency and availability. So what I also believe in working with youth is we can't tell them what we know. I'm a child of the 80s. Nancy Reagan thought the best way to approach me as a youth in the 80s was to just say no. So a little bit about my history. My general demeanor towards an adult that would say just say no was, I can't really repeat it here. Yeah, right. It was yes. If you said no, that meant yes to me. So that's a pre-existing warning signal for sure. We haven't gotten much further from that. We haven't done much better than just say no. And a part of that is just based on the criminality aspect of how we address substance use in this country and in the world. Whole nother subject. Lots of great speakers and YouTubes and TED Talks out there going on right now. Excellent films out there. I highly recommend you look into the decriminalization of substances in general as a means to addressing this at a grassroots level. Off that soapbox. The thing that's most important is, I believe, entering into dialogue with youth. And that's where you all come in. Who, way back in all our ancestry, all of us, way back, way back, as far as we know, anthropologically speaking, archaeologically speaking, how did people come into relationship with substances? Anyone? How are they introduced? How was that innocence, breached, so to speak? Letting the fruit, okay, so there was the technique, but who introduced it? Anyone? Parents? You got it, okay? The religious or the spiritual elders of the tribal community said when, where, how, why, how much, how often, with who. They were very specific sets of circumstances in place. So what we've done over this long course of history is we have separated ourselves more and more and more as adults from the opportunity to breach that innocence in a loving, compassionate, honest, genuine way. I am not, by the way, a proponent for, hey, everybody, let's go get high. That's not my message. It's not my message, okay? My message is it's a natural tendency. It's a natural curiosity. It's something in our being, and we're going to get a little bit into that. All right? So, but there's something missing. There's a big gap that needs to be filled. And I believe it's all about communication. We can fill that gap with effective communication. So, what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask you all to get into groups of about 4, 5, maybe 6. Okay? Just real quickly, find a few people to gather together with. And on this card, I want to know your answers. Why do kids use drugs? What are some of the factors other than just breaching that initial innocence? Again, I'm just giving out random cards. You figure out what grouping you would like to be in. Take your time and hurry up. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Why do kids use drugs? You're welcome.
We have a card shortage over here.
Right there. Oh, you only need one. You only need one. Each group only needs one card. You don't even need a card. Just share your thoughts. Why do kids use drugs? You guys got, okay, good. Ah, you guys are way ahead of the curve.
The acoustics in this room suck.
So they can't hear me,
So
huh?
So you're fine online.
To medicate or to self-medicate.
30 seconds. Okay, time. If I could have your attention. So, if you'd like to have one person be the spokesperson for your group, that's fine. You can stay where you are. It's probably a little bit more intimate anyway. Or each of you can maybe share a little bit. But let's just kind of go around and share. Why do we think kids use drugs?
There's something missing in their lives, it's a way of social bonding.
Okay, can I hold you to one or two? So something's missing and social bonding. Okay. And by the way, if you have something similar, raise your hand in your group. Okay, excellent. Next.
We said doctors often prescribe medications extremely early, which then could be a gateway drug to other, like other drugs, other substances.
Okay.
And then also because of like as an escape to kind of get away from the lives that they're living if they're unhappy, kind of like a reason to run to a drug, which could temporarily fill the void.
Okay. Early onset is how I'm going to abbreviate that first part via prescribed medication. And the second, remind an escape as a way of getting out, filling the void. Come back to that. Other groups have that? Similar? Okay. Something that we haven't heard yet. Experimentation and fun. I'm thinking experimentation is fun, but that's just me. Okay. Any other groups have similar? Experimentation, fun, okay.
We have a great word that this gentleman came up with. Social lubrication.
Social lubrication. I don't know about you, but when I drink, I look better. I dance better. Right? Okay? I'm funnier. And no, I've not been drinking today. Yes, social lubrication. I love that one. Other people have that one, maybe? Some other groups? Excellent. Any others that we didn't catch? That like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, back there. Parents, right? Access, right? Access. And again, access is a big one. There's lots of great campaigns going on right now, specifically on the issue of prescription medication abuse. And that's, lock it up, lock it up, lock it up, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it if it's, if you're done with it, that sort of stuff. And role modeling. Excellent. Yeah, parents demonstrate, kids watch, they pay attention, right? Okay. Any other groups have a little bit of that too, right?
On that complete lack of supervision, no one's paying attention.
Right, so it could be the opposite too, right? So that's right in their face because of the family environment, or there's nobody there to catch it. Okay. Can we get this group over here?
And the only other one we have is boredom.
Boredom. Yeah, how many of you know a teenager? Right? How many of you have ever heard a teenager say, I'm bored, right? My line doesn't work anymore, but I always tell them, I pray for boredom. Pray for boredom. So anyway, rebelliousness. Those are my people, right? Yes, rebelliousness. Okay. So if I were to do this with a group of teenagers, do you think their responses would be any different than yours? No. Dead on. Exact same stuff. In fact, the studies that are out there, okay, prove what you guys have just said. Why do people use drugs and alcohol? Peer pressure, boredom, stress relief. I don't know if we covered that one. Okay, a little bit. Depression, anxiety, all right, co-occurring issues. Accessibility is the big one these days, guys. Think about it. In my day, when I was first experimenting with alcohol, sneaking out with a fifth of booze was not necessarily that easy. Okay? Now it's a pill. It's a pill. Tiny little pill. And chances are one of their friends has actually prescribed that medication and has it in their pocket readily, legally, and does not mind sharing. Or it's in their parents' or grandparents' medicine cabinet. My favorite reason? Feels good. Skip and I were in a presentation a long time ago at a high school after they had done this great research study and proven that this particular high school had the worst case of substance abuse among teenagers ever recorded. All the parents showed up, and they pointed their fingers at the entire panel as to why their data was wrong. And someone just demanded an answer. And the best answer I've ever heard from the most educated person I've ever met was, do you know why they do it, Mom? Because it feels good. It's an overly simplified answer, but look at that experience. Every one of us has a sense of, we love that little kiwi getting some air there. We love it. So it's a really hard thing to combat, knowing that that's what we're fundamentally up against. Because all these other reasons are pushed aside once that experience is had. So what we also know is there are multiple risk factors. Those multiple risk factors combined equal a higher rate and risk of abuse and addiction. So some of them are family history. We talked about that a little bit, right? Parents who may already be in an abusive relationship with substances, or family members, older siblings. Early use, early onset, getting access to this stuff early on, another big piece. Euphoric recall of the first time. The Kiwi does a great job demonstrating that. If a kid overdoses, oh, by the way, raise your hand. This might be a little personal, and I apologize. You don't have to. Raise your hand if you've ever thrown up as a result of drinking too much. We're all adults here. Okay. Put your hands down. Raise your hand if you've ever had a drug overdose. Oh, sorry. Not to be candid. So I'm going to ask two questions again. Raise your hand if you ever threw up as a result of drinking too much. Keep your hand up because you have had a drug overdose. It's a physiological reaction, an autonomical response to being poisoned by ethyl alcohol. That's why you did it. That's why it happened. Okay? So if that happens for most people, by the way, they're not going to go back to drinking the next day. Okay? Especially if they're a teenager. They're going to avoid it. They're going to give some distance between that experience and the next experience. And they might be a little bit more wise the next time they have that experience about their rate of consumption. Euphoric recall that's the killer. If their only thing they can remember, and by the way, our brains are wired this way, right? It's why, anybody have kids? Okay. And anybody have more than one kid? What are you, nuts, right? Okay. All right. I had two at once, so, that's my excuse. But, well, I didn't. My wife did. We only remember the fun stuff, right? So euphoric recall is a big piece. If a kid has a really great high with very little negative consequence, chances are it's going to come back, right? And by the way, I'm saying kids, obviously this applies on any age group, right? Second largest or second highest rate of abuse, anybody know in what demographic right now besides kids? Elderly. Elderly, right. And again, what's the correlation? Access to pharmaceuticals that are highly, highly, highly potent substances. Tolerance. I'll come back to your question in just a sec. Tolerance, okay? If a person has an abnormal tolerance for less or more, that's a strong indication that there can be issues in the future. Question? Why less? It shows a sensitivity. It just demonstrates sensitivity. Does that make sense? Right? There was a question about...
I wonder if you really want to talk about remedies in terms of sort of like culturally, and I know families who have wine at dinner, and that's
Yes.
there's like more.
Yes.
And is that common for early youth, or?
Again, how is it structured? How is it, right? What is the social component? What is that family, what is the relationship in the family to the substance, okay? Yes, for a lot of cultures that do have wine at dinner, there are lower rates of abuse because there's not, in our country, we have an overwhelming response of negativity and shaming and guilt associated with this issue. In European cultures that have wine as part of their practice at home, they're not nearly as rampant at the age in onset.
So earlier use in a more positive way would be better.
Could be. So here's the thing I want to point out about this little, right? And then trauma is a big, big topic these days, right? Okay. Quick incident or quick example. When I walked in this room this afternoon, just before this afternoon, I saw these desks and I had an immediate physiological response, fight or flight. Get out. I hated school, couldn't stand school, wanted nothing to do with school. Putting my body in one of these was like locking me up. All right? That's a little trauma. That's what we call little t. Big trauma, we all can come up with some ideas of what that might be for youth, right? We don't necessarily have to repeat them. All right? So these are just some of the factors. There's a bunch of other ones that when you combine them, it's a recipe. And it's a recipe for potential for abuse, misuse. So fundamentally, somebody nailed it. I really believe that the reason any of us seek a substance to solve any issue is we're seeking to fill a void. So, how do we prevent this? What role do you all play? You guys are in this world of ministry. You're in this world of offering them a community of like-minded people, however different, to come together on one common theme. What would you say that is in youth ministry? Anyone? What's a common theme in your ministry in gathering young people together? Loving community. Safety. Family? Faith. Okay? I just said family. Right? Typically, kids come to church with their families, right? You teach them stress reduction tools, whether you know it or not, just by being present in their lives, just by a smile. I got a smile and a nod over here on that one. Easiest way to reduce someone's stress? Give them a smile and a nod, okay? The community building, and my most important piece that I hope you will take home with you today is what you have available to you now more than anyone ever in the history of mankind, as well as the kids, is we have all these facts in front of us via these wonderful little devices. By the way, the kids do too. And I don't know if you know this, but if you do a Google search on marijuana, and you're a PhD studying something about the neurobiology of addiction, your Google feed is going to bring up a whole bunch of really cool data that's scientifically based. If a kid who's 17 years old wants to look up kind bud, otherwise known as marijuana, they're going to get a great list of all these awesome dispensaries in Colorado. Everybody get my idea? Right? So the algorithms are stacked in our favor based on our search history. So the information is out there. The facts are out there. I encourage you to dig for them. Dig hard, dig deep. Do your own research. Don't do the research I did. Don't do the physical research, okay? But do the research. Learn about the facts so that we're not going at this with a message of fear. Embrace the kids in a conversation that is open, that is equal in the sense of, I don't have all the answers, neither do you. Let's come to a common ground. And they want this, by the way. They crave it. Most of the programming I offer, I come in, do a big presentation to a giant school, auditorium, whatever it may be. More the merrier for the first one. Similar to like a drug dealer maybe. First one's free. And then I encourage, if not demand, that the school allow me to come back on a regular basis to have an ongoing conversation. Because the kids crave that honesty. And because of my own history, I'm uniquely qualified to offer a little bit more direct information. So, there's never enough time for these experiences. My most important message to you all is when you build your ministry not around substance use and addressing this, you build your ministry around God. You are building your ministry around faith. You're building your ministry around this intangible, most personal relationship that a human being can ever have, which is with their Creator, with their God. We can't ever truly understand someone else's relationship, but you can try. And kids want that. They want to know. They are curious, right? They are curious. They want to know. So the more we can give them direct experience of God, the better off we are at addressing this issue. So, what I've come to love about some of my education is there's a simple word out there that fills a lot of voids in my life. It's best described as good, orderly direction. As a minister, as a youth minister, as a person involved in the lives of youth who's shown up to this talk, you have a natural predisposition to offer the experience of good, orderly direction in the programming you offer, in the conversations you have, in the involvement with the families, in the involvement with the school. We, in this particular realm, we cross so many of the boundaries that are actually existent. I can't encourage a teacher to have some of the conversations I can encourage you to have with their students. It's illegal, actually. It's against the law. I don't encourage anyone to promote substance use by any means, but I can't encourage you to promote an open dialogue without punishing the teenagers for being honest. I can do that with ministry. You are all very uniquely qualified by sitting in this room to present this topic in a way that is digestible, that is honest, that is direct, and most importantly, that gives kids faith that you're there for them, no matter what. And that's what drugs do. They promise something in that first experience, and eventually, they take it all away. We are an excellent line of defense, better yet, a line of offense. I encourage your vulnerability. I encourage your honesty. Most importantly, I encourage you to dig deeper into the facts that most resonate with you. Because you can't sell something you ain't got, right? So, how am I on time? About there? Some resources I think you all wouldn't mind having. National Institute on Drug Abuse. Being one of those rebellious guys, I had a hard time coming around to any government agency, okay? NIDA has a fantastic website, very accessible, especially for kids. teens.drugabuse.gov. If you just do NIDA, Google, boom, you got it. Partnership for Drug-Free Kids. It used to be the Partnership for Drug-Free America. A lot of you know the old egg in the frying pan, right? This is your brain on drugs. They did an evolution of that. This is your brain on drugs. The girl who was doing it said, remember this, right? Brain, drugs, took the pan and just starts smashing the entire kitchen. It says, this is your family, and this is your friends, and just destroys her, and then she drops the pan and says, any questions? Awesome, brilliant. Partnership actually truly has an excellent track record of creating partnerships within communities to address the issues. NIDA as well has got great online resources. Celebrate Recovery. It's a Christian-based 12-step organization. Really amazing, really amazing. People in 12-step recovery often struggle with the concept that God is whatever anybody wants it to be. And they want it to be Christ. And that's an awesome thing that the Christian community and the recovery community have come together to create their own 12-step fellowship, basically. And it's very much involved as part of the ministry of the churches that is typically in. Growing exponentially, really amazing. And by the way, largest community of people recovered from substance abuse. Anybody know what community speaks to the most numbers of recovered drug addicts and alcoholics? A little bigger. Faith-based. Faith-based community is twice as big as the 12-step communities. And the 12-step communities, most people think, are the biggest representation. So, and the last one, Skip just cut me off, Tim Walsh Consulting, I don't know that guy. You might want to check him out. I am very honored to have had this experience with you all, and I thank you for being present. Oh yeah, you need that.
I want to thank my friend Tim also for being my microphone. We have to covenant with students who need to leave, or with folks who for any reason have to get going to an appointment. But we're going to stay here, so after you could go get another cup of coffee, you could go get a cookie if you have to go, but if you have some time to stay, please stay. And I want to give you a teaser about staying. When we knew we had to address this question with kids who were bored, tired of being talked down to, no, we don't need another program on this. I've been in DARE for... Tim designed a program he called Choices, which he still facilitates. And the gist of it was, we don't need to tell you anything about drugs. You are the world's experts in one dimension of this question. I want you to get in your groups and ask yourselves, why do people do drugs? What do they think is going to happen? what actually happens, what could you tell anybody that makes a difference? And then we're leaving. Came back in an hour, the kids, we're not done yet. Came back and said, okay, now, why do you do drugs? What do you think you're going to get out of it? What are you actually going to get out of it? What can anybody say to you? We're leaving, you know the answers. Empower yourselves to bring the answers forward. We left, come back in an hour, we're not done yet. And for weeks they were bringing their friends to Tim who they knew were in trouble. So we're going to talk about choices and other active, constructive programs that Tim or others can bring to you after I give you a chance to get a break or get on your way, whatever you need to do. Thank you for coming.